Welcome to this session of the PlantPure Summit 2016, co-sponsored by PlantPureFoods.com. Our guest is Dr. Baxter Montgomery. Dr. Montgomery is a board-certified cardiologist with years of experience in the latest medical practices in nutritional health. He is a fellow of the American College of Cardiology and the founder and president of the Houston Cardiac Association. In 2006, he founded the Montgomery Heart Wellness Center in Houston, Texas, a state-of-the-art wellness facility complete with all the technology and resources to provide comprehensive medical and wellness care, including the use of plant-based nutrition. So welcome to the summit, Dr. Montgomery.
Thank you very much.
Great to have you here. So when and why did you first switch to a plant-based diet?
You know, it's an interesting question I get asked often, and you know, my process was one that was more evolutionary. It was one where I had started off with a general interest in wellness, and this started back in my cardiology fellowship and training. Of course, my perspective on wellness was more on the exercise aspect of things. And you know, went into private practice. I was seeing lots of patients with chronic illnesses, and as a cardiologist and cardiac electrophysiologist, I practiced in hospitals, emergency rooms, did advanced procedures. And one thing I realized about the patients' illnesses progressed despite all the advancing technology. You know, we tried to help our patients optimize their lifestyle, to walk more, etc. I experimented with a lot of different diets. But I also realized that my patients continue to get sicker despite the advancing technologies and the like. I also had some personal health issues. I noticed that my own LDL cholesterol was elevated. And being a cardiologist, I knew that I would be destined for medications if I didn't do anything, which I didn't want to take medication. So I did a lot of my independent research. I actually took a raw vegan chef certification course one weekend and came across a lot of resources on the benefits of a plant-based diet. And that began the new journey, if you will, when I learned how beneficial a plant-based diet was. I applied this to my own lifestyle and saw amazing results. This then prompted me to start applying this to some of my patients' care, and I saw amazing turnaround in many of my patients. And of course, my practice is one such that I saw patients with end-stage heart disease. Many of them had near end-stage kidney disease. And so we had to get drastic results and drastic improvement in these patients in a short period of time. And that was the one thing that I really realized and was amazed with the application of plant-based diet. Not only that it was a powerful preventive tool, but that it was very powerful in reversing some of the most advanced illnesses that I saw in my practice. So it was an evolutionary process, starting with an initial interest in wellness, a personal need for my personal health, and then I started applying it to some patients, and one thing led to another.
So what sort of changes did you see in your own health and well-being? Well,
personally, my LDL cholesterol went from 138 to 70. Although I exercised a lot, I was very, very heavy. I lost weight, became more energetic. My mental clarity improved. So these are some of the minor things. I was able to work longer hours with less rest. So, you know, these things were characteristics, personal characteristics of mine that just showed that I was a more energetic person, a more vibrant person. My patients, for instance, I recall a patient I saw in my office. She had a very weak heart. It was pumping at about 10% of its capacity. She had chronic diabetes, had 4-vessel bypass a number of years prior, a number of stents. She was in a wheelchair, had bad arthritis, was short of breath on oxygen, and she had just been discharged from the hospital. I saw her in the office, met her and her husband, and what I did is I put them on a juice feast detox. And so I wrote out recipes, and I had them go and follow this nutritional juice feast detox regimen for 10 days. There was nothing else to eat. Follow this, saw her back in 10 days. She came back in the office, walking, no wheelchair, walking, laughing, no oxygen, more energetic. We were able to begin weaning her medications, and she became a new person just in that short period of time. This is one of many, many examples that we saw. We began seeing early in my application of this approach.
That's an incredible story. How did that make you feel as a physician?
You know, I was elated. And even to this point, we've been applying this approach in our clinical practice for nearly 10 years. And I never cease to be amazed with the improvements that patients have, the results and the reports of their improved well-being, not only on the physical side, but also on the mental side in terms of them having improved mental clarity, et cetera. So it's just an amazing experience, and I describe it as that, an experience, because as a physician, I go through this experience of healing with my patients, and I feel an overwhelming sense of gratitude having the opportunity to practice in this capacity.
That's said like a true doctor. I mean, you know, undoubtedly you got into medicine because you wanted to help people and help cure people. And that must just be an incredibly great feeling to be able to actually reverse disease and restore health, as opposed to just sort of like jury-rigging problems that are just going to get worse and worse.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And, you know, we at Montgomery Heart and Wellness have a unique situation. So when I started my practice in 1997, I practiced as a general cardiologist and a cardiac electrophysiologist. And the types of procedures I did consisted of emergency heart caths on patients having heart attacks in the middle of the night. I implanted defibrillators in patients with congestive heart failure. And these devices are designed to shock the heart back into rhythm if they go into cardiac arrest. And in that capacity, I had the privilege of seeing, you know, amazing results or amazing improvements in many of my patients with advanced heart disease. But despite that, despite all of that technology, the results I saw there paled in comparison to the results that I see now with the application of plant-based nutrition. And the key part to that is that the application of optimal nutrition is at the foundation of optimal health. It's where the body is enabled to heal itself at the cellular level. And that's something that we're not able to do in traditional allopathic medicine.
So it seems to me that it's still kind of rare for cardiologists to embrace plant-based nutrition as a treatment for their patients. Why do you think that is?
You know, it's rare for cardiologists and it's rare for doctors in general. And I think the answer to that question is quite complex. I mean, I think there's some political components to it. There's some sociological components to it. Cardiologist is a subcomponent of our society. And we are entrenched in a certain lifestyle, a certain way of doing things. And the types of food we eat is at the core of many aspects of our social lives. And so eating bad food is almost like, you know, breathing air for some people. And so when you come with a paradigm shift, a thought process where, hey, the way we've been eating for the last, you know, umpteen years, hundreds of years, is fundamentally wrong, it's hard for people to get their arms around it. So if you look at cardiology as a subset of that whole mental process, you can understand how cardiologists who are trained a certain way of practicing, our understanding of disease is just based on, you know, disease states are inevitable, they're genetically defined, and so we just have to manage these diseases. That's just part of an overall thought process that's part of society. And so it's hard for the cardiology society as a group to kind of break that whole trend. That's the way I see it. I think it's a very complex set of reasons behind that.
It does seem like it is complex, and it's all interwoven with a lot of different things in society. So what do the majority of your cardiologist colleagues think about your employment of plant-based nutrition?
I don't know what they say behind my back, but for the most part, the ones I interact with are very complimentary. I think the overall feeling is one that's good. I've presented at grand rounds to a number of physician groups, including cardiothoracic surgeons. And when I present the data, they're quite impressed. Many of them are just impressed with the fact that we're just able to get patients to make these lifestyle changes. What I've learned is that many cardiologists, many doctors in general, cardiologists in particular, want their patients to eat healthier, even though they may not understand that a plant-based diet is the optimal diet, but they all have a desire for their patients to practice a healthy lifestyle. But they don't have the time, and in some cases, just don't have the resources to sit down and work with their patients in the way that's necessary. But overall, the response I get is favorable. There's some cardiologists who refer patients to me for the purpose of changing their lifestyles.
Well, that's good to know. So when and why did you decide to found the Montgomery Heart and Wellness Center?
So Montgomery Heart and Wellness Center was founded after we started applying this nutritional approach. As I said before, when I started applying plant-based nutrition to my own lifestyle and saw amazing results, I started testing it, if you will, on many of my patients. And so the approach at that point in time was I would go and see a patient in the exam room, and I would write out a dietary plan for him literally on my own, hand it to him. I'd make a copy for myself and a copy for the patient, have them come back in about 7 to 10 days, follow their results, and then encourage them to go longer. What I realized is that patients did very well within the first week, 2 weeks, maybe even a month, but they didn't have the support that they needed. When I talk to patients about eating all plant-based or eating a salad, I have to demonstrate what a salad was. So this led to the need to create a program or a set of programs that gave patients support. So what happened was we developed boot camp classes. We started developing nutritional support group classes. And so it evolved to a process where I created a separate entity that was then branded as Montgomery Heart and Wellness. Now Montgomery Heart and Wellness exists as a new healthcare model. So when we started with Montgomery Heart and Wellness, in and of itself was a wellness program that coexisted in parallel to my cardiology practice. Now Montgomery Heart and Wellness encompasses a new healthcare model. And what I mean by that is that a typical patient with diabetes, heart attack, who may be on 15 or 20 medications, they have to go and see their doctor with Blue Cross Blue Shield or whatever insurance plan they have. They should be able to walk into a typical medical clinic and get their blood pressure medications adjusted. If they need to have a stress test, they should be able to have that. But they also should have available to them the optimal lifestyle modification intervention, which is plant-based nutrition and secondarily exercise. So what we've done is we've integrated this plant-based nutritional approach in our standard practice. And so it's juxtaposed with me doing a heart cath or me doing a defibrillator implant. If a patient comes in with a heart that's 10%, they may get something on the allopathic therapy side temporarily, but I'm also putting them on a plant-based nutritional regimen that's very precisely designed. I have nutritionists in my office, I have a fitness therapist. We have a restaurant on site. And so we have specific meal plans, and we literally prescribe food. We use a number of food classification systems that not only tell the patient precisely what to eat, but precisely how to prepare the food. And we follow them carefully, looking at their biomarkers and cardiac physiology as we manipulate the food. So it's really a new healthcare model that we're working in.
That's a great glimpse, I think, at the future of what medicine should be or will be. What sort of compliance rates do you see with your patients?
early on, the data we have from our boot camp data from nearly 10 years going forward is that within the first month, we see greater than 65% compliance in terms of people coming in the beginning and completing, say, the detox phase. The longer term phase, probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 50%. We don't have strong numbers on that. Some people you lose to follow up, but I would say it ranges from 45 to 55% beyond a year. And if you look at those numbers, you say, well, that's interesting. But if you look at the compliance of, medications, those compliance rates are somewhere in the neighborhood of about 20%. And so, patients who are prescribed, say, any one of a number of medications, pharmaceutical prescription drugs, their compliance with taking the medications as prescribed is very low. And oftentimes it's due to the fact they're having side effects. It impedes on their lifestyle. Someone who's prescribed a diuretic may not take it if they have to go to the mall or someplace like that. So our compliance rate is pretty good, and it's very good compared to the compliance you get with typical allopathic medicine.
That's impressive. What are some of the issues the patients you face with family and friends when they adopt a plant-based diet?
Well, there's always that pressure of family and friends for them to do, the typical thing. And the family dynamics can be quite interesting because individuals may go to a family reunion, for instance, and maybe they had Aunt Sarah's peach cobbler, every year prior, and now all of a sudden Aunt Sarah wants you to eat the peach cobbler, and he said, I don't eat that food anymore. So there's a psychosocial aspect of dealing with it. One, you may be craving Aunt Sarah's peach pie. That's the psychological aspect. And then the sociological aspect, Aunt Sarah's feeling disappointed because you're not eating the peach pie. And so they're having to overcome a lot of these other things. And we teach them in our classes how to deal with these family dynamics.
That's important. It's one thing that I think is a big deal about food and getting people to change their diets is people are, I think, very emotionally attached to their food. That's
right. That's right. I recall a story of one of our patients who was started on a detox, and we're here in Houston, Texas, and we have these Popeyes that started in the brain, a certain chicken place that has 99-cent wings every Tuesday. And this, patient was accustomed to going and getting these wings for 99 cents on Tuesdays. And so he was on a detox program. And so he was driving his truck, and all of a sudden, his truck seemed to have automatically turned into this chicken place. And it pulled up, he stopped, and he was relaying the story to me. And he says, in the back of his mind, he kept hearing a voice saying, you shouldn't be here, you shouldn't be here. He got out of the truck, walked into the chicken shop. The voice got louder and louder, you shouldn't be here. So he stood in line, waiting to get his 99-cent wings. And the voice became so overwhelming, he had to leave the chicken place. He walked back to his truck, got inside the truck, and sat in the truck and cried out loud. And he says, I'm not even an emotional person. But that was the impact of the food. And so it is very emotional. We hear these stories a lot.
Yeah, no kidding. And, that doesn't even come close to, I think, like, Thanksgiving at grandma's house, Christmas dinner, stuff like that, Easter.
That's exactly right.
These things are really deeply ingrained in people or summer barbecues.
That's right. That's exactly right.
It's really ingrained in our culture and our society. And it seems to me that sometimes you talk about this diet to people and it's like, what, you want to take away the hot dog I have at the ballpark? I mean,
that's right. And our programs are designed, and you make a great point because, our patients are very ill, and because the lifestyle change is such an important component, is that we have different ways of working with them to help them address these issues specifically. And so our nutritionists, in addition to the shopping rounds, we have one-on-one counseling courses, group sessions, and we actually go through, for instance, restaurant menus and to decipher how to manipulate and change, menus. So it is very difficult, as you point out, for individuals to make these changes in the setting of those pressures. And in our patients who really have to make those changes, we work very closely with them to help them strategize and create strategies of overcoming these types of situations.
What about restaurants? Are you finding that more restaurants are offering plant-based or vegan options now? It seems like it was a few years ago, like really rare to find restaurants that would even serve foods like this. Is it becoming more common in your experience?
Yes, that's correct. We are seeing more restaurants who are making vegan options, and also personally I've noticed, and so many of my patients have noticed, that many of the waiters and waitresses are familiar with making certain meals vegan options. So yes, that's something that we're noticing.
I think that's a big change and a really positive thing. Do you have any particular success stories, noteworthy success stories? You told us one earlier about the woman, who had 10% heart function. You got any other stories like that?
Yes, we've seen a number of patients, and we've had, over the course of nearly, 2 decades, we've seen thousands of patients reverse many conditions. To mine, one patient initially saw us at the age of 89, and she was on about 21, 22 medications, including insulin. She had been on insulin for about 40 years.
Oh my God.
Wanted to improve her health at the age of 89. So we detoxed her. And she wasn't getting a lot of support from some of her family members, but she, stayed the course. And we got her from 21, 22 medications to about 4 medications in about 4 weeks, including removing the insulin in about 2 to 3 days. And she had been taking insulin for about 40 years. So she reversed her diabetes, became much healthier. Currently, she's on no medications. She's about 94 years old, and she drives. She's active, fully functional. And one day I was seeing her in the office, and she complained about the prices in our restaurant, which I don't think our prices are very high. So I told her, so we need to learn to negotiate, when you go to places like the supermarket, et cetera. And so she began to negotiate with me. So now she has a lifelong 50% discount in our restaurant on a regular basis. Another patient we saw us at the tender age of 101. And she was on 7 medications, has congestive heart failure. And so her family brought her, she wanted to get off her medications. So we put on a nutritional regimen, and we got her down to 1 medication. And I did a selfie with her and posted it on Facebook because I found out during one of our office visits that her birthday is on February 22nd, and mine is on February 21st. And so this past February, she made 102. The day after, I made 52. So I posted a Facebook posting. I said 52 and 102, going plant strong.
That's great.
But we've seen a lot of patients. We've seen patients with reverse coronary disease. Many patients we get a number of patients who come in with advanced kidney disease and heart disease, and we're able to see them, help turn their lives around, improve their cardiac function, and also improve their kidney function. But we see patients in their teens, in their 90s, 100, 80s, 70s, and we had a patient who had severe rheumatoid arthritis, who had Enbrel. She was on Enbrel and methotrexate, and she still had severe pain. And in a matter of 4 weeks, she was nearly pain-free. And in about 2 months, we had gotten her off both the Enbrel and methotrexate. The other thing about our program, which we emphasize, is that not only is there the application of plant-based foods, we start off with raw in the form of a detox. Sometimes we do juice feasting, but we're very aggressive in weaning medications. And we actually take control of the whole patient and take control of their medications because we find it to be very important. This is critical from the medical standpoint because the condition of polypharmacy, someone being on multiple medications, is a disease in and of itself, in my opinion. And the reason I say that is because oftentimes individuals may be on multiple medications that may have an adverse effect on the liver. And if liver metabolism is impaired, digestion is impaired, and your overall cellular metabolism impaired. So not only are we carefully placing individuals on plant-based nutrition, but we're also, in a parallel fashion, weaning them from these typical either over-the-counter medications or supplements or prescription medications.
Do you find any difference about in terms of compliance and things like that in the age groups that you treat? Is it easier for older, sicker people for you to get them to comply? Or how do young people react when you're trying these methods with them?
That's a great question. Young people have certain challenges because of their environment. If they're in college, if they're in high school, they may not have the independence, say, if they're in high school, so they rely on their parents. There's more peer pressure that they may succumb to, say, more so than the older person. Having said that, I see compliance rates all over the map.
Your audio just froze again, doctor.
A good number yeah, that's I saw that and I reached and changed. I'm gonna keep my little mouse pad here.
Okay.
Anyway, back to the perspective, we see a number of young patients who are very compliant and some who are not. And the younger population have unique challenges because they're more easily susceptible to peer pressure in some settings. In other settings, they're not as independent as older patients. But be that as it may, we find that relative compliance varies across the age spectrum. I would tend to say that some middle-aged or older people are a little bit more compliant than the younger group. I'll give them a slight edge. But oftentimes the older people come in and say, well, doc, I've been eating this way for 75 years. I've been eating baked chicken for 75 years. And I'll tell them, well, you've had enough. Now it's time for something else. So, it's all a matter of how you shape, the argument. In individuals, it's always a matter of a value proposition. And if you give the patients a proper value proposition, they often make the right sacrifices and the right choices.
So when and why did you found the Houston Cardiac Institution?
Well, Houston Cardiac Institution was my parent company. So when I finished my training as a cardiologist, I wanted to work for myself. And so I came right out of training. I didn't work for anyone. I hung my shingle. And I had a vision of treating patients and optimizing their health. Now, early in my medical practice, I set a 10 to 20 year vision, business vision, where our practice would be the standout cardiology institute, the premier cardiology institute in Southeast Texas. That was the initial vision. And part of that vision was that we're going to be stellar in clinical medicine, and the clinical outcomes would be our first bottom line. And then we're going to have very strong fiscal attributes. And so we're going to be financially strong. And the other bottom line is going to be a key to our success. And in the context of that, little did I know at the time that it was the outcomes, the beneficial outcomes, that was going to be the overall driving aspect of our success. And the key to that outcomes, the outcomes that we have now, is in large part due to the fact that we are applying lifestyle interventions in a very intentional manner, specifically plant-based nutrition.
So how would you describe the mission of the Cardiac Institution and the Houston Cardiac Institution?
Well, the mission of Houston Cardiac Institution and Montgomery Heart Wellness combined is, in essence, to revolutionize the way we practice medicine. We want to create a new healthcare model. We want to create a new paradigm shift in the approach to helping individuals achieve optimal health. We want to look at health from a standpoint of a global aspect of the human frame and optimizing the condition of that human frame and enabling it to function best in biochemical fashion and also in this physiological fashion. So really our vision is to revolutionize medicine, change, create, or participate in the creation of a new paradigm shift.
So you are talking about treating, it's a holistic approach, essentially, yes?
You can say it's a holistic approach. You know, that word gets thrown around a lot, and it means a lot of things. Many people, you know, have different, supplements and different things that they apply. So yes, it is holistic, but our holistic approach is one that's truly natural. You're going to start with proper nourishment of the body. It starts with what you're feeding yourself. Plant-based nutrition is at the core of it. You want lots of fresh air, lots of sunshine, and you want to move the body. The human frame needs to be moved, needs to be stressed. And so that's at the core of what we should do to optimize our health.
What kind of progress is plant-based nutrition making among cardiologists nationwide?
You know, I'm seeing more and more cardiologists nationwide come forward, different events that I've been speaking at over the years. I'm seeing more cardiologists come forward to promote this lifestyle, and they're sharing their success stories. As you may be aware, Dr. Kim Williams, recent past president of the American College of Cardiology, is vegan and has been promoting this lifestyle for the benefit of patients in his practice, and also suggesting that this approach be used in cardiology in general. So I see a definite upward tick, if you will, in the number of cardiologists who are becoming aware of this approach.
That's a tremendous, I think, development. Why has that progress accelerated since you became a cardiologist, do you think?
You know, it's a great question. I think the reason why is because we're beginning to reach a tipping point, and, you know, cardiologists are exposed to what's out in the environment just like everyone else. And so the more you see books and the documentaries, and I think it's just the grassroots approach that's happening, where individuals who are taking responsibility for their lives, they're seeking information. Information is easier to come by. When I was a little kid, you know, you had to have a set of World Book encyclopedias, and you'd read through that. Now you can just, you know, Google something or Bing something on your phone, your laptop, and you know, get an answer to a question. And so information is much more prevalent at our fingertips. And the fact that plant-based nutrition is so powerful, is very effective, and the truth behind it is really hard to keep it a secret.
How supportive has your family been about this?
That's a mixed bag. My kids, being kids, they're all teenagers. I can encourage them to eat vegan to a certain extent, but they're exposed to other family members and their other environments. So I haven't gotten them fully pulled my way, but my older two have pledged to give the vegan lifestyle a try once they're in college. So we'll find out how that works. And so I have my own siblings, or they dabble with it, but I haven't gotten any full takers among my immediate family yet.
How about your folks? Yeah, no, yes or no?
But my mom has since passed, and my dad, again, no. He's not a vegan, but I'll take him smoothies and salads, and he'll eat it at his house. He's 83 years old, and he's supportive in his own way. I'll put it that way. Now, my mom, I took care of her on her deathbed, and many of the things that I learned while caring for her has contributed greatly to my knowledge base and my approach to medicine now.
How's that so?
Well, my mom, she when she initially had taken ill, she was diagnosed with a meningioma, which is a brain tumor. It's not really literally in the brain. It's the meninges around the brain, but it had to be surgically resected. So during the course of getting her medical evaluation, we found that she had significant coronary disease, And so and I had some colleagues working with me. So at the beginning, I wasn't caring for her primarily. So what happened was she had a stent placed, and after recovering from the stent, we waited a while, then she had the meningioma resected. But that led to a cascade of events where, she had a series of illnesses and, salvos where she would get, more ill and then recover partially, et cetera. And what I realized in looking at that whole process, because she was having what was thought to be seizures, but they really weren't seizures. They were, sort of a mental fog-like spells that she had. And she became progressively ill over time. And she was in the hospital for about a year and 10 months, in and out of the ICU, and eventually died of liver failure. And that condition of mental fog, although it wasn't primarily neurological, it was really hepatic. Excuse me. Because over the years, she, as a diabetic, was on diabetic medicine, on cholesterol medications, standard American diet. Even though her liver enzymes were not abnormal, her liver function was progressively abnormal. And one thing I learned was that you can have hepatic dysfunction that will not manifest with the elevation of liver enzymes. And in medicine, we typically follow the liver enzymes as a crude measure of liver function. And that can be very misleading. And so she had full-blown liver cirrhosis, so scarring. And when I analyzed everything, it was all as progressive, the nature of the medications that she was on, plus the standard American diet. And I often say, my mother when I was young would tell me, I'm going to be your mother till the day I die. And she always taught me things as my mother. So on her deathbed, she taught me the most important lesson that I'll ever learn in medicine.
That's an incredible story. Did she have any inkling about the impact that she was having on you in that way, or?
I don't, but I imagine she's looking down from heaven smiling. So I guess it's all good.
That's a good way to look at it. So where do you see the idea of plant-based nutrition as a primary treatment for heart patients standing in, say, the next 10 to 15 years?
That's a great question. When, in my experience, when we're seeing patients and they come in and let's say they have advanced heart disease and we're trying to, quote unquote, turn them around, get them better. So they may be acutely ill, they're on a lot of medications, and we try to sort of get them from sort of a desperate state or near desperate state to some level of stability. Sometimes it may be difficult to talk to an individual and say, hey, you need to take on this lifestyle. And so from a lifestyle change standpoint, it's hard to get someone to say, okay, I'm going to adopt a plant-based lifestyle, and for the rest of my life, I'm not going to eat any baked chicken. And so that's one area. But what we have found in our practice and our intervention is that we will use plant-based nutrition precisely as an intervention. So for example, if you needed bypass surgery, and I'm your surgeon, I'm going to sit down with you and say, well, Lee, we're gonna put you to sleep, so give you anesthesia, and we're gonna put a saw down your chest and open your chest open, and we're gonna take veins out of your legs, and we're gonna sew them into your heart, etc. They're gonna sew things up, put wires in your chest, and let you wake up. You're gonna lie in the ICU for a certain period of time. You'll have a tube down your throat, maybe for a few hours, and that'll come out. And you'll say, okay, fine, I'll sign right there and I'll go through that. But if I were telling you, well, you're going to be that way for the rest of your life, you'd say, no, you're crazy. But if you know that dire situation with your chest open, a tube down your throat, a saw going through your chest, is only temporary, is a transient process to get you better on the other end, they say, okay, I'll go through this surgery. Now, if we take plant-based nutrition and look at it in a similar fashion, okay, Lee, I want you, your blood pressure's high, your legs are swollen, you're in heart failure, your diabetes are out of control, you're on 32 medications, I need to wean the medication because your liver is under stress. So I want you to go on a juice feast, drink raw juice, and maybe salads for 10, 15 days. Now, I'm not going to say, wait, adopt a plant-based lifestyle for the rest of your life, because you're going to be, first thing that's going to come to your mind, but what about next Thanksgiving? Thanksgiving could be 10 months away, but you're going to be focused on Thanksgiving. So if I say, let's take this plant-based regimen, and for the next 2, 4, 6, 8 weeks, I want you to apply this intervention to turn your condition around, to get you to a more stable position, then that's the application of plant-based nutrition without trying to get somebody to negotiate with their family members on Thanksgiving while they're not eating turkey. So the plant-based intervention can be used as an intermittent intervention. And if we're crafty enough with it, and individuals are using it intermittently on a regular basis, they gravitate to a more and more plant-based lifestyle.
So you think this is going to keep growing in the next 10 or 15 years? Where do you see this idea like a decade from now?
I see it as a decade from now is that we're going to have different protocols, different approaches that's going to include plant-based nutrition. So if someone has to go through surgery, they may need to go through a plant-based nutritional detox 2 weeks before going through surgery to improve their surgical outcome. I think plant-based nutrition could be used in the setting of near end-stage life, where individuals who are hurting or having pain or suffering, you can put them on a plant-based nutritional regimen that may improve their quality of life during the end of their years. But I think by and large, plant-based nutrition can be applied at any stage of medical practice and medical intervention. I had a patient, another success story, a patient was on life support, and she was a patient I'd been treating for a number of years. She had congestive heart failure, had a plantar defibrillator in her. She also had chronic lung disease. So she was in the hospital with an infection. She was intubated on life support, and we were feeding her with a PEG tube. Her kidney started to fail. One of my colleagues talked to the family, wanted to dialyze, and they refused. So she was going to die. So I talked to her and said, look, let me try something. I started giving her raw, freeze-dried veggies through the PEG tube with water. And I took away all the other feeds, and I started weaning her meds. Her lungs started clearing up. She eventually walked out of the hospital. So plant-based nutrition could be applied even in the ICU.
That's incredible. That's absolutely incredible. It's clearly this is an idea whose time has come. Do you think we've reached sort of like the tipping point in this country where plant-based nutrition is just not going to go away? People can't ignore it anymore, you know?
Yeah, I think so. We're either at the tipping point or fairly close to it. I hear so much about it. I'm seeing my patient population is skewed. Patients come in, and I'll walk into an exam room, and I'll see the patient, and you know, my mindset's kind of. Sometimes you see an individual, you say, "Well, there's no way this person's going to want to be plant-based," and lo and behold, they're coming primarily to learn how to get on a plant-based diet. And so, you know, I never cease to be amazed at who's going to follow this program. And so I think we're at a tipping point. If we're not at the tipping point, we're very close, I think.
Well, and it's and to a great degree because of people like you, Doctor, that we are at that tipping point. So I really want to thank you for taking the time to come on and be a guest at the summit. And do you have a website where people can go to find out more about what you do?
Yes, we do. And the website is simply montgomeryheart.com. Montgomery, that's my last name, heart.com. They can also call the office at 713-599-1144. We see individuals not only in the Houston area, the Texas region, but from all over the U.S. And we've had individuals phone in and benefit from our program. So at montgomeryheart.com, there's a lot of educational information that we have. There's an annual conference health summit that we put on. So there's a wealth of information that individuals can get just from our website alone.
That's great. Well, I want to thank everybody for watching, and we encourage you to learn more about our efforts to build a PlantPure Nation at our website, plantpurenation.com.
Also, Lee, one other thing, my book, The Food Prescription for Better Health, is available on Amazon, and that also describes our approach in some detail as well.
Oh, great. I'm glad you mentioned that. Doctor, thank you very much again for being on. It was a great pleasure, and I'm sure, keep up the good work. It's people like you that are really making this thing happen,
Yes, thanks for having me.
You're very welcome.
All right.